If you've ever sacrificed everything for someone and they still treated you like you meant nothing, this story will break you. Because I was a mother and my own son made sure I died alone while I was still alive. I used to believe motherhood was holy, that if you gave your child love, you'd get love back. Not money, not gifts, not attention, just love. But I learned something at 58 years old. Some children don't grow into adults. They grow into strangers. I raised my son Daniel alone. His father left when he was 2. No goodbye, no child support, no phone calls, just silence. So I worked. 2 jobs, night shifts, double shifts. I skipped vacations, skipped birthdays, skipped my own life. And every time I looked at Daniel, I told myself, this is worth it. When Daniel got into college, I cried. Not because I was proud, because I was terrified. I didn't have savings. I didn't have help. But I had one thing, a mother's guilt. So I paid. Tuition, rent, books, food, even his car. And when he'd call, he never said, "Mom, thank you." He said, "Mom, I need." After graduation, he moved to another state. And at first, I understood. Young people want freedom. They want their own lives. So when he stopped calling weekly, I told myself he was busy. When he stopped calling monthly, I told myself he was stressed. When he stopped calling at all, I told myself maybe I wasn't important anymore. My house got quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like you're already dead and the world just hasn't noticed yet. Every holiday I set the table for 2, even though I ate alone, because deep down, I still believed he would show up. Then one day, I collapsed at work. The doctor said the words so calmly, "Ma'am, you have cancer." I remember staring at him like he was speaking another language. Cancer? No, I didn't have time for cancer. I had bills, I had work, I had responsibilities, and I had one person I thought would hold my hand through it, my son. So I called him. He answered. I said, "Daniel, it's me." He sounded annoyed, like I interrupted something important. I said, "Baby, I'm sick." He sighed. "Okay, how sick?" I whispered, "It's cancer." And do you know what my son said? He didn't say, "Oh my God, Mom." He didn't say, "I'm coming." He said, "So what do you want me to do about it?" That sentence, it didn't just hurt, it rewired something in my soul. Because for the first time, I realized my son didn't love me. He just loved what I provided. I started chemo. The treatments were brutal. My hair fell out, my appetite disappeared, my bones felt like glass. I would sit in my living room, holding my phone, waiting for Daniel to call. He never did. Sometimes I'd text, "Just checking in, I miss you." No reply. Then I'd send, "I'm scared." No reply. Then finally, "Please, can you just talk to me for 5 minutes?" And he replied with one sentence, "Mom, I'm busy. Stop stressing me." Stop stressing him. Me, the woman who gave him life, the woman who gave him everything. I stared at the screen and realized I wasn't his mother anymore. I was an inconvenience. Then one afternoon, I received a letter in the mail, not from Daniel, from a law office. I opened it with shaking hands, and what I read made my stomach turn. It said, "Notice of property transfer." My house, my home, was being transferred, signed by me, but I didn't sign anything. I called the law office. They said, "Your son submitted the paperwork." I said, "My son?" And the woman on the phone said something that made my blood freeze. She said, He told us you agreed because you're mentally well. Not mentally well. I was sick, not crazy, not confused, not weak, just sick. And my son was using my illness to steal my home? I called Daniel immediately. He answered like nothing happened. I said, "Daniel, why is my house being transferred?" Silence. Then he said, "Oh, that," like it was nothing. Then he added, "Mom, you're not going to need it." I whispered, "What did you say?" And he said, "You're dying. I'm just preparing." Preparing for my death while I was still fighting to live. I felt something inside me crack. Not anger, not rage, something worse, grief. Because I realized the child I raised was gone, and in his place was someone I didn't recognize. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept remembering little Daniel, how he used to hold my finger, how he used to say, "Mommy, don't leave me." And I thought, I never left him, not once, but he left me the moment I became inconvenient. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror. No hair, dark circles, skin pale, but my eyes still had life in them, and I whispered, I am not dying for someone who already buried me. I went to a lawyer. I brought every paper, every proof, every message, and the lawyer said, "He can't do this." I said, "He already did." The lawyer said, "We'll stop it." And for the first time in months, I felt something, not hope, something stronger, dignity. 2 weeks later, Daniel showed up for the first time in a year, not because he missed me, not because he cared, because he received legal notice. He walked in and said, "Mom, why are you doing this?" I looked at him and I didn't even recognize my own voice because it was calm. I said, "Daniel, why did you come now?" He said, "Because you're ruining my future." And that's when I realized he never saw me as his mother. He saw me as a bank account with a heartbeat. He tried to guilt me. He said, "I'm your son." I said, "I know." He said, "You're supposed to forgive me." I said, "I forgave you 100 times. He said, "You're being dramatic." And I smiled, not because it was funny, but because I finally understood. This wasn't my son. This was my lesson. So I pointed at the door and I said, "Go." He said, "You're really kicking me out?" And I said, "No, Daniel, you left years ago." When the door closed, I slid down to the floor. I cried like I was grieving a death, because I was, not mine, his. The version of him I believed in died, and I finally stopped trying to resurrect him. I continued chemo, and slowly I got stronger. Not because Daniel came back, but because I chose myself. I chose peace. I chose to stop begging someone to be human. And now I want to ask you something. If the person you love most treated you like you meant nothing, would you still call it love? Or would you finally call it what it is? Tell me in the comments. Would you forgive a child who tried to steal your home while you were fighting cancer? And if you felt this story, please subscribe for more real emotional stories, because some pain deserves a voice.